Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast, conversations shaped by curiosity, creativity, and connection. I'm your host, Shannon Miles Halliday, and this show is where we explore new possibilities and embrace the wild, beautiful, ever-unfolding adventure of being human. Before we launch into this podcast, I want you to think of 3 words that describe where you're at right now. So, are you feeling tired? Are you feeling energized? Are you feeling curious? Me, I am excited, I'm happy, and I'm really warm. It's really warm in Vancouver today. What are your 3 things? Just be aware of them. At this present moment, what are 3 things that I'm feeling? It's super helpful just to do this little check-in. Okay, now let's dive in. So just this week, I delivered a workshop to a fabulous group of women working in a clean energy company. And it was called What You Bring into the Room, the Human Side of Business Development. So in the workshop, we dive into the science, we dive into some really good corporate thinkers, and I won't have time to do that today. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, please let me know. And either I can talk more about the podcast or deliver a workshop for your team. Now, the What You Bring into the Room workshop, we dove into so many different things. And it had me thinking that this can really apply to so many things or rooms that we walk into in our regular lives. I think that it all boils down to presence and what do we want. When we talk about what we bring into a room, we can talk about that in terms of what we bring onto a sports court, what we bring onto a soccer field, what we bring into a dinner party, what we bring into a boardroom, an office, whatever it is. When we can be present, we get to choose what we're bringing into that room or that space. And I think without even realizing it, we are entering into spaces with our thoughts, our tensions, our expectations, self-judgment, perhaps, judgment of others, our energy, not great energy, all the things. And most of this is completely subconscious. And I think if we can use presence to make that conscious, we can really elevate our game with everything. And that brings me to FIFA. So FIFA is happening this week in Vancouver. And there are soccer fans everywhere. So the world's largest sporting event is happening right now. And it feels fitting that I talk about it. I was interested in seeing what makes a great soccer player a great soccer player. And so many of these things can be applied to so many different situations. But great soccer players, tend to let go of mistakes instantly in that they reset between plays. They visualize either before the game or during the game. And they have a love of what they're doing. They have fun. Even when they're under pressure, there's a love and a joy of whatever they're doing is still there in the truly greats. This is universal across sports. It can apply to tennis, volleyball, hockey, and I'm going to show you some examples. I was listening to a commencement speech by Roger Federer the other day, and he was talking about the fact that he had played over 1,500 games, and he won 84% of his matches. But he only won 54% of those points. Now, why that's interesting is because when you're only winning every other point that he talks about, that you can't afford to hang on or be dwelling on that last point, no matter if it was an epic featured on, all over the networks kind of point or a terrible mistake. You don't have time to be focusing on what you did wrong, and you just need to put that away. And I see this ability to just take that negative stuff and put it to the side or just completely let it go being a true superpower. And I was thinking of my son with playing volleyball. So anyone who's been listening for a while knows that I talk about him playing volleyball. And we talk a lot about who he is on the court and what he's bringing onto that court when he shows up. And also, what's he bringing to the team? And one insightful guy on his team told his mom, who told me, that he had said, it's like we're all in a bubble out there. And I thought that was pretty darn good for a grade 10. And what he was referring to was that if one team member feels something on the court, they all feel it. And it's so important for them to basically keep their act together if they make a mistake, or even if they're celebrating a point, just to get right back into that focus. Because I watched some kids do it. They would hold on to a mistake that they made, and it would seep into the rest of the team. And nobody cared that they made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes in team sports. And the problem was when they couldn't let it go, because they were all in this stew of whatever was in that bubble. And when they were having fun, let me tell you, that stew, that bubble had some great stuff in it. I mean, there was magic sauce in that stew when they were having fun. And when they got serious, then it disappeared. I saw a Ted Lasso quote, and it was him talking to this guy, Sam, and he said, you know what the happiest animal on earth is? It's a goldfish. You know why? It only has a 10-second memory. Be a goldfish. So Ted Lasso's telling this Sam kid, be a goldfish, Sam. And I think that's seriously, some of the best sporting advice out there. I also had one more sporting reference. I have a friend whose son plays for the NHL, and he's done really well. And he has loved hockey since he was 5 years old. I remember talking to her, and we just turned on the hockey game, and our boys love it. They love it. They became obsessed with hockey, and now he plays for the NHL. And I listen to interviews with him and with the coaches and fellow players. And those interviews, they're all talking about what a smart player he is or his physical abilities. And you know what? When he starts talking, you know what he's talking about? He's like, I just have so much fun. Now, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good place to be, because he knows when he's having fun, he's loose. And when you are in judgment mode, you start to shut down and you're not able to be your best self. So thinking about the workshop that I just gave, one thing that I find really helpful is to think of yourself as walking into a room or any experience with a backpack, and think about what you've got packed in your backpack right now. So, when you're going on a hike and you're packing in your backpack all the things you'll need, like a water bottle, some snacks, maybe some extra layers. And depending on where you're going or how long you're going, you may need a lot more things. And you prepare yourself for whatever your hike entails. Now, the same thing can be true for how we're entering into spaces, walking into rooms, walking onto pitches, walking onto courts, whatever it is. We're all walking in with this invisible backpack. So when we look in our backpack, what's in there? Are there things in there that we don't want to be carrying in? The self-doubt is not going to help me any. Or anything else that just doesn't feel good. Ditch it. Get it out of that backpack. And then consciously choose what you want to bring in that backpack. For me, if I'm walking into a meeting or walking into a new space or even a dinner party, generally, I'll want to bring in openness. I'll want to bring in curiosity. I'll want to bring in some fun, some sparkle. So you get to choose what you're packing in that backpack, and it can change for every single thing that you do. And don't judge yourself for anything you want to take out of your backpack. It's your backpack. You get to decide, and it's totally okay. So I wanted us to do a little exercise here, and it's called NAC. And I learned this exercise back like ages ago because when I was pregnant, got a lot of anxiety, and this really helped. It was taught to me by Dr. Lauren Brown of AccuBalance, and he's been on the podcast before. And it's notice, accept, choose again. And what you do before you walk into any space, you just stop for a few minutes and take notice of where you're at. Notice what's happening in your body. Am I feeling tension in my shoulders? Am I feeling tension in my jaw, in my head? What story am I telling myself? What story am I walking into that room with? What preconceived ideas do I have? How am I feeling? Am I feeling prepared? Am I feeling good? Just take stock. And no judgment whatsoever. You are just noticing what you notice. And then you move into the accept part. You don't fix, you don't judge, you don't do anything like that. You just accept yourself for the person who is having these feelings or this, whatever it is. And so it's called attention without tension. You're just noticing what you notice and accepting that's okay. Then the next step is choose again. So this is where you're fully armored up, where you can have the power to be like, I get to choose who I want to be walking into this situation, walking onto this court, walking onto this soccer pitch, walking into this boardroom. I get to choose. So what are you going to choose? Who do you want to be? What energy do you want to be bringing? What intention do you want to carry? And it's not a case of being false positive. If you've got some tough stuff going on, you've got some tough stuff going on, and that's okay. But it's being the most authentic that you can be to who you are going into any space. So before you walk into your next space, next room, next experience, think about what silent signals are you sending? Thank you so much for joining me today for this podcast of what you bring into the room. I hope you walk away with some tips and tricks, and that if you enjoyed it, that you can share with a friend that might find this information helpful. And in the meanwhile, as Ted Lasso says, go be a goldfish. Thank you for joining me on the Miles to Zen podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, follow, share, or leave a comment so we can keep growing this community together. This podcast was created and produced by Shannon Miles Halliday with original music by Anna Vovziniak.